Do you think it's just the quarterback play that's been poor all season? Do you think Stefanski has put Baker in the best? Where do you land? Give me the lowdown on where you're feeling at this point.
I mean, okay, so the easy answer is a little bit of everything. And I know that sounds like an easy answer, but you have to, they've had offensive line injury problems since week 1. In the first game, you and I were sitting there in Kansas City, and I think they lost Wills, Conklin, and Hubbard all in one game.
Mm-hmm.
And if it wasn't all in one game, it was all very quickly within each other. We lost both of your really good tackles and your swing tackle. The Browns did the right thing by having a really good swing tackle, a third guy, and he went down too. So that, and then we've had, COVID issues and other bumps and bruises. Conklin came back and then got hurt again. And so there's been problems there. That's part of it. Combined in the Baker injury, another part of it, the dysfunction of the wide receiver group, OBJ being crabby, and then the other guys maybe just aren't very good, DPJ, whatever. And it turns into a big mess. Now, I don't think Stefanski has helped them very much either. I do not understand why TJ Watt did not get more attention the other night. And that is squarely on Stefanski.
I can't wait. I'm going to let you finish, but I have so many thoughts on this. So many thoughts. You just continue.
So that is where I would, if I'm Baker, I'm wondering what is going on. And he was right in that post-game Zoom. He was right to say, I hope you guys don't see this as me ripping on Hudson. And he wasn't. But Hudson one-on-one against TJ Watt is a total disaster, and somebody's got to help him out.
For starters, we'll start with Baker. He's played poorly.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have a left side of his entire body. He's been playing without it for a good part of the season. Whether that's an excuse or not, you have to acknowledge it. I'm not saying his injury is an excuse. I'm just saying, at what point do you say, okay, let's sit him? I don't know I'm confused by that entire situation, because Case Keenum said today it's a small miracle he got out there. Well, if that's the case, who's making the call of who to sit when injuries are serious? And it kind of goes back to the Steelers game. Everyone's going, what is going on? Because you're sitting here telling us Baker's healthy enough to play, but Nick Chubb needed a breather for a rib injury, and he's on the sideline. Meanwhile, Myles Garrett's playing with half a groin, but he's playing on Christmas in the Steelers. Inconsistency.
Yep. Good. That's all good points. And you're right. There is a fine line between reasons and excuses. And I'm not sure where that line stands with Baker's injuries. Right.
And it's confusing because, one, we're not in the building, so we don't know what's truly going on. And two, Stefanski doesn't answer the questions. No matter how you phrase them or what you put out there, he doesn't want to give you anything to cling on to. And I think there's a healthy way to acknowledge things instead of dodging them. Because when you're dodging them, you're trying to hide something.
Yep.
And I think that goes back to something I've been saying all season, which is something is oozing out of that building in Berea that we're not seeing or we're not comprehending because we're not a part of it. And I don't know what it is, but as a former athlete, I can tell you what healthy culture looks like and what not healthy culture, or let me say it this way, relationships look like. What I kind of take away from all of this, and here's my hot opinion, people will either agree or disagree with. The Browns, Stefanski, the organization, I don't know, I don't want to say who or what, because I'm not totally sure, but what I kind of interpret from all this confusion and inconsistency is, I don't know if they know if Baker's their guy or if they want him to be their guy. On the other end of that, does Baker even want to be here anymore? The reason I ask that is to go in that Steelers game and TJ Watt is eating your breakfast, lunch, and dinner while also slamming in your bad shoulder every chance he gets, and you don't get any help.
Yeah.
Even in the Manning cast, Aaron Rodgers goes, get him some help. Either you're terrible at in-game adjustments, which is not going to work out in your favor in long term, or as fair of a question it is to ask, is Baker the future? It's also very fair to ask, has Stefanski put Baker in the best positions this season?
Yeah, No, I don't think he has. And, you mentioned the Peyton Manning thing. Let's talk about that. Remember, there are Tennessee ties with the Haslams, and they are close with the Mannings. And if he wasn't watching the Manning cast, obviously what was said got back to him. And that is I would say, a family friend ripping his coach up and down. Now, you can say in the moment, Manning didn't know about the rib injury. I think you made a great point is, if Chubb's out with a rib injury, that's where he was obviously able to come back and play, why is Garrett out there and why you've been throwing Baker out there all year with significantly more problems than a small rib injury. So, yeah, I mean, I think everyone is up for fair game here. Everyone is fair game to be questioned.
And I now add all of that maybe behind the scenes drama to the fact that your O-line hasn't been healthy. Baker hasn't played well and has been injured. Your receivers are average and have dropped so many passes this season. When you finally feel like Baker's hit the right person or found someone, it's a drop. On top of that, your running backs have COVID or have been injured. Tight ends, Njoku's maybe the guy, the guy on offense. And that's kind of shocking to say the least. I will say that Austin Hooper, that Steelers game, I don't know what to say. I'm trying to be nice, but it's like he looked like a guy that didn't want to be here next year.
I mean, on the first two drives, he had a critical drop on third down, and then he had a penalty on the next drive, and it was away we go.
If I am during that Steelers game, now I understand, you're not going to the playoffs. There's not a whole lot to fight for, which I still thought there was. Winning record in the division, upset Big Ben at home on his final night at Heinz Field. If I'm watching that game and I am a Myles Garrett or maybe someone else who's a leader on this team, it is a fair thing, in my opinion, to do to hold some accountability. Because at what point are we actually trying to win this game? And at what point is someone just trying to prove a point in this game over trying to win it?
Well, and that goes back to, there's people wondering, and I'm not saying I agree with this because this starts to get a little bit into the tinfoil hat crowd, but people wondering, is Stefanski, does he keep throwing him out there to make the point, we can't win with this guy and we need to be better, we need to get better? Or does he just really think that's the best option? I do not believe we've heard sometimes does Baker just insist on playing? I don't believe that. They're the head coach. They're a head coach and a front office and assistant coaches. They can tell him to sit down. I don't believe, of course, Baker's going to want to play. Players want to play. Coaches make the decisions to play them. I don't know why you were right. It has been woefully inconsistent. I don't think the head coach looks good. He blames himself for everything, and I understand that he's coach speak to a degree, but it turns into 17 weeks of him saying, yeah, I sucked. And after a while, it's like, okay, then, I mean, once or twice, of course, you're going to lose a coaching battle, but I mean, it starts to pile up here after a while.
And I agree with you in the sense of it gets sticky when you start saying, is Stefanski just throwing Baker out there to, fend for himself? And I don't like that because I don't see any real motive. People's true colors or true play are going to come out eventually, and you're either going to stay or move on, whatever the case is. But I was baffled, like everyone, that Nick Chubb's on the sidelines and you're continually letting TJ Watt eat Baker's lunch all day. Yeah. It made no sense. I mean, I'm not the smartest person alive. I don't know more about football than Stefanski or any of these guys in the building, but I can tell you that's not great.
And I mean, that's one of those, even if put it this way, you saw that enough as the night unfolded, that if you were playing that game in Madden, you would be looking at how to audible the running back to a pass blocker just to pick that guy up, because it's right in front of your face and you can see what's going on. You're looking through the instructions. How do I audible and change the running back to pass block? Because this isn't working. They never audibled the running back to pass block. They just let him tee off on 6.
No. Okay, so we'll close out this segment with this final question. Where do you land? Do you think it's a quick fix for next season? Do you think they're going to run it back? Do you think they're both the problem?
I think they're going to absolutely look at a quarterback upgrade, and we're going to talk more about that, I believe, in the next segment. I would be shocked if Stefanski were in any kind of trouble. I'm not saying, he doesn't deserve to have his feet to the fire here a little bit, but I think the two of them, I think Mayfield is the closer to the exit door.
I mean, I like Jarvis Landry a lot. I do, but where has he been? Like,
yeah, well,
in the game, but also like talking to us. We haven't talked to him since this OBJ stuff went down, and that's telling you something.
Well, and that's, that is where COVID benefits some of these guys. They don't have to, we're not allowed in the building. And so you can't, it's not like you can be in the locker room and say, hey, you got a minute. And then they're forced to deal with you. And they may say no, but then you can ask them, what about later? And you can at least try to pin down a time to talk to them, or they're obviously dodging you. This way, everything's on Zoom, or the press conferences are they bring a guy out and we're all there. You're never in the building. And if he doesn't want to do it, he just doesn't want to do it. You never actually get to engage with him to even say, hey, do you have a few minutes to talk? And so he talked at his thing on around Thanksgiving. And since then it's been radio silence from 80. And he's been hurt. You know what? He was hurt. I got it. But yeah, he's a guy you would like to hear from about not just his injury and his play.
And it was kind of telling, in my opinion, about Baker maybe being fed up with all of this in the end. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but he's someone who's a pretty vocal individual, has maybe taken some heat because he'll say things. He's not afraid to put people in their place or whatnot. Now, I don't think he's publicly going to come out and say anything about Stefanski, right? But the fact that Steelers game went the way it did, he was sacked 9 times. There were all these batted balls, wasn't necessarily getting the help he needed. And to sit at a press conference and almost just be done, calm, collected, over it. I'm getting surgery, got to do what's best for me at this point. The best for me was kind of like, I'm done. I'm not putting myself through this anymore. I'm getting this surgery.
And how about the part where he said, I'm going to talk to my agent and my family? He never said he was going to talk to his coaches of the team. That stood out to me, because normally a guy would say, I'll talk to my family, I'll talk to the coaches, and the organization is involved in this. I do not believe he unintentionally left the organization out in those comments. I think he meant it. I'm talking with my camp, and right now the organization's not in my camp.
And maybe I'm stirring the pot a little bit here. Let me just say that before I say this. I spent a lot of that game, and I've spent a lot of games watching Baker go off the field and interacting with Stefanski. As a woman, I like to think I'm in tune with my emotions. I read relationships well, maybe not great all the time, but there were times where I'm going, this seems a little cold. And granted, I'm used to watching Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur, who are constantly talking to each other. There's hand movements, and, there's high fives when they score. There's, and I probably missed some things, so maybe I'm reading too much into it. But when a relationship is great, there's that camaraderie, right? I mean, right. Mark, talk to me. How many times have you seen, Baker and Stefanski like buddy?
You don't. Right. You don't. Now, that's also, I don't know if you saw it a lot last year either. Stefanski by nature is not a big rah-rah guy, but Baker is. So, I mean, you would think, there might be some better body language there for that relationship.